Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Up in the Air. I'm Ryan Breton.
And I'm JP Nicola.
Nice to have you back with us, JP, just in time for our final episode of the semester.
It's good to be here. I'm looking forward to many more episodes together next semester, too.
And we have a lot to discuss tonight, ranging from recent weather and its impact on natural gas to heavy flooding rain in California.
Plus, Hunter Williams will be by with a look at the weather pattern for next week in our climate outlook.
And we'll have a conversation with our Weather Risk Management Club about travel and recent impacts from winter weather.
But first, let's take a look at the latest news and information from the weather enterprise and climate science world.
Here is this week's Update in the Air.
An early December storm system dumped plenty of precipitation on the drought-ridden state of California in the form of mostly rain with snow at higher elevations. A spiraling area of low pressure in the eastern Pacific was responsible for pulling such large amounts of moisture to the west coast. Weather balloons launched during the event showed levels of moisture in the atmosphere over California were nearly twice that for an average day in December. However, all this rain and snow did not put much of a dent in the drought. 80% of California is in either an extreme or exceptional drought. Los Angeles County Water tweeted out that their system captured 1.16 billion gallons of water, enough to supply 28,000 people for a year. Unfortunately, Los Angeles County has a population of over 10 million people. Another crucial piece of California's water supply is the Sierra Nevada snowpack. This storm was a relatively warm one and confined snow to some of the highest elevations. This has meaning because the water content of the snowpack is only 34% of the average for this time of year and only 6% of the April 1st average, the approximate time of peak snowpack.
The Philippines have been devastated by Typhoon Hagupit, otherwise known as Ruby in the Philippines themselves. According to reports as late as Monday evening, nearly 24 people have died due to the typhoon. It made landfall in eastern Samar, just north of where Haiyan made landfall last fall. The areas hardest hit by the devastating Haiyan missed the worst of the storm surge in this storm, but received several inches of rain. Mudslides are of concern, particularly in areas with over 10 inches of rain. Power outages continue to be restored after power was out in well over 20 provinces during the height of the storm.
Forecasters are warning an El Nino may soon be back for the first time since 2010. El Ninos are caused by periodic warmings of the tropical Pacific temperatures, and temperatures have exceeded El Nino levels for a month. The Southern Oscillation Index, which indicates the development and intensity of El Nino or La Nina events, has remained at or near thresholds for 3 months. Specifically, the threshold is sustained values below -8, and the latest 30-day value to November 30th was -10. According to New Zealand's National Institute of Water and Atmospheric Research, patterns are, however, consistent with a weak event developing. This is due to the overall atmosphere circulation not showing a clear coupling to the anomalously warm waters. It is this fact, along with below-average rainfall near the dateline and over Indonesia, that has led NOAA to only issue a 65% chance that El Nino conditions will be present during the Northern Hemisphere winter. Regardless of whether an El Nino event is declared, El Nino-like effects are likely, the Australian Bureau of Meteorology said.
Natural gas prices are largely driven by the weather, and this year so far has been no different. The frigid weather in early and mid-November led to soaring prices, but lately, natural gas futures have tanked due to a milder December. For example, on November 28th, natural gas futures closed at $4.08. That's 60 cents lower than where they peaked on November 21st. Futures are now down to nearly $3.60, largely driven by the less cold December weather. Analysts believe that natural gas futures are truly driven by the weather, and this is evident as last winter the frigid Arctic outbreak in January and February led to prices as high as almost $6.50. Meteorologists play a crucial role in trading natural gas, as an understanding of weather and long-term patterns are crucial to investors and traders. In fact, we have students here in the Department of Meteorology learning the tools of the trade in our weather risk management option. Perhaps you'll see them on the trading floor someday in the future.
An island nation in the middle of the Pacific Ocean is one of the earliest victims to this change. The highest points on the main island are no more than 2 meters above sea level. The president recently spent $8.7 million on a piece of land in Fiji as a place to send citizens when waters rise. As crazy as it sounds, some islands may actually rise with the rising sea levels. The islands of Kiribati are essentially made of sand and gravel generated from the surrounding coral reef. Paul Kench, head of the University of Auckland's School of Environment, explains. As sea levels rise and more waves hit the low-lying islands, researchers like Kench expect some of the island material to be washed to higher elevations, thus raising the island's height. Comparison of past and present satellite images confirm movement of the islands. An increasing problem is that Kiribati's main island has a population density similar to Tokyo and Hong Kong. That island is only 6 square miles and very narrow, leaving residents with really no place to move when sea levels rise.
The Atlantic hurricane season very quietly came to an end on November 30th, and it will be remembered as another very quiet season. Only 8 named storms formed, 6 of which were hurricanes, and 2 of them were deemed major, reaching Category 3 or higher status. This falls within NOAA's predicted ranges from both May and August. Penn State's Earth System Science Center predicted fairly closely, with a best guess of 9 named storms in the prediction released back in May. It is believed that a combination of atmospheric factors led to another quiet season. Strong wind shear and dry air were experienced in the tropics through much of the season. The first named storm, Arthur, moved up the eastern seaboard around the 4th of July holiday, but caused little substantial damage. Flooding rains were the major factor in New England, where holiday plans were quite literally washed out. It has been several years since a major hurricane hit the United States. However, it is critical that despite another quiet season, individuals and communities prepare for the threats caused by hurricanes, many of which are exacerbated by sea level rise and a greater population living very close to the coastline. Welcome back. We are now joined by members of the Weather Risk Management Club for this week's Risk Report.
Brett Eilertson and DJ Bennett are here now.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much for having us.
What is travel typically like on the winter holidays of Thanksgiving, Christmas, and the New Year?
Believe it or not, holiday travel times are slowly becoming a thing of the past. After the string of recent airline mergers, there are only 4 big carriers that control 80% of the seats on aircraft, a number that's down from 11 carriers in 2005. Within the past few years, 13 of the nation's 30 busiest airports are finding that passenger traffic amounts are equal to or surpassing Thanksgiving traffic numbers at least 1 day per week year-round. This is caused by the constant growth rate of passengers, while the industry as a whole isn't really adding more seats overall, thus leading to more packed flights.
How do airlines prepare for big travel events and the weather that may be impacting their flight lines?
Airlines during the wintertime have to anticipate the arrival of any winter weather activity in order to prepare treatment services for all of their aircrafts. All aircrafts need to be treated with de-icing fluid during operations that take place during winter weather and below freezing conditions in order to ensure that all are ready for safe operations. However, this can cause heavy departure delays at airports, with each aircraft taking at minimum 20 minutes to de-ice before taking off, thus causing a snowball effect throughout the day.
Have there been any recent weather events that have impacted holiday travel?
On the day before Thanksgiving this year, a winter storm rode up the East Coast, furthering flight delays and traffic jams on what is typically the busiest travel day of the year.
Now, what were the impacts of that Thanksgiving storm?
As many as 20 million people were under winter storm warnings in the Northeast on the day before Thanksgiving, as travelers tried to navigate slushy roads and air travel delays. Motorists saw a slower than normal holiday drive, and air travelers experienced plenty of delays at the airports. The FAA said some arriving flights at Newark Liberty International Airport were delayed by more than 3 hours around midday on Wednesday last week. According to FlightAware.com, about 3 of every 8 flights departing from Newark had either been delayed or canceled by 4 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon. Also, there were more than 4,700 cancellations and 700 delays at airports across the Mid-Atlantic region.
What was the meteorology behind that storm, and is this a typical scenario for winter holiday travel?
The cold front that swept through the central and eastern U.S. earlier in the week stalled just off the East Coast. Low pressure spun up along the tail end of the front over the Gulf of Mexico on Tuesday and strengthened along the eastern seaboard on Wednesday. The meteorology behind that storm was that a rainy coastal low was quickly moving up the East Coast. It morphed into a snow event across portions of the D.C. metro area, southern New Jersey, and southeastern Maryland.
DJ and Brett, thanks very much for joining us for the final weather risk report of the fall semester here on Up in the Air.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
The Weather Risk Management Club appreciated the opportunity to present these risk reports this semester.
Welcome back to Up in the Air. It was a cold November in State College, but it hasn't been quite so bad lately.
That's right, it's kind of been up and down this month, and of course, earlier this week, a substantial storm brought snow to the mountains and rain to the coast of the Northeast.
Heading into the holiday season has many wondering if we may see a white Christmas.
And that's for sure, and it's time now for our climate outlook. Here is Hunter Williams with perhaps the answer.
Thank you, JP and Ryan. Now, after a fairly wintry and a fairly snowy week here across the Northeast and here in the state of Pennsylvania, we'll start off by taking a look at the snow coverage map, and you can see nothing too special. In fact, only 19% of the country covered in snow. Now, compared to this time last month, we actually had higher values in the month of November, so a bit of an unusual setup here as we get into the interior parts of December. But you will notice up into upstate New York, some very high snow depth values, upwards of 2 feet over there. So certainly they've been getting plenty of snow throughout this week. Now, as far as the temperatures as we go throughout the next 8 to 14 days, you can see a bit of an unusual setup. I don't get to say this very often, but if you want the slightly below normal temperatures, you're going to have to go to Florida to find them. But back home across the state of Pennsylvania, above average, and through the rest of the Northeast, you will be experiencing these above normal temperatures, which we will certainly take after this wintry week that we've been experiencing, but well above normal through parts of the Midwest, Chicago, Minneapolis, enjoying these above normal temperatures. Now out west, the same story that we've been dealing with, these drought-stricken areas continuing to see above normal temperatures here, especially along the immediate Pacific coast, San Francisco, and extending up through Oregon and into Washington, experiencing these above normal temperatures. Now, shifting our attention to precipitation, you will notice below normal precipitation through parts of the mid-Atlantic and up into the Northeast. Once again, after a snowy week, we'll certainly take the drier, warmer conditions through the next 8 to 14 days. Now, down south through parts of Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas, also experiencing the below normal precipitation, as well through parts of South Florida, Miami, getting a little bit of a drier pattern as we go throughout the next couple of days. Now, moving out west, this is where things get a little interesting, and fortunately some good news for a lot of people, especially into California and Nevada. You will notice the green stretching from parts of Nebraska, Colorado, all the way out west towards the California coast here, and that's very welcome. These, of course, the areas that have been very hard hit by the drought here, months and months of rain deficits here, but we will be experiencing plenty of precipitation out west through the next couple of days. In fact, snow throughout the Sierra Nevada mountain range here. Plenty of snow, in fact, upwards of 2 feet in places, but along the coast, seeing the rain, and this is very welcome once again after the drought. And this extending up through parts of the Northwest, through Oregon into Washington. But as we shift our focus over to Montana, seeing well below normal precipitation values, but we'll keep our focus on the good news as far as cutting into that drought deficit in California and Nevada. Back to JP and Ryan.
That's all for this week's episode of Up in the Air, the final episode of the fall semester.
And we'll be back in late January to share more of the work in the field of meteorology by Penn State students. We truly appreciate you tuning into our show this week and each week.
You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, where you can view any of the previous episodes this season or from previous seasons.
And that's about all the time we have. Thank you very much for joining us.
I'm JP Nicola.
And I'm Ryan Breton. We'll see you next year Up in the Air.